Welcome to another episode of On This Day on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. I'm your host for On This Day, Mike Goodpastor. Today we're going to talk about December 21st, 1969. Now, what's so great about that date? Vince Lombardi coached what turned out to be his last NFL game. It was on this day that Lombardi coached that last game for the Washington Redskins against the Dallas Cowboys at the old Cotton Bowl. Now, in 1954, Lombardi got his first coaching job in the NFL as an assistant for the New York Giants under Jim Lee Howe. He wanted to be a college football coach, but he was Italian, and that was basically held against him. He played for Jim Crowley, famous of the Four Horsemen at Notre Dame in the late 1920s under Knute Rockne. And at Fordham, he ended up being a coach. Previously, before that at Fordham, he was part of the 7 Blocks of Granite, the famous offensive line. Now, in their third season with the New York Giants under Jimmy Lee Howe, along with defensive coordinator Tom Landry, the Giants won an NFL championship by defeating the Chicago Bears 47-7. He was also part of the famous greatest game ever played in 1958 when the Colts won against the Giants in the championship game that helped the league gain widespread popularity. In 1959, he became head coach of the Green Bay Packers and took over a team that had the worst record in their franchise history, going 1-10-1 in 1958. They immediately, under Lombardi, improved to 7-5 in 1959. Now, Lombardi's 1960 Packers team made it to the NFL Championship and lost to the Philadelphia Eagles. That would be the only time in his entire career as a head coach with the Green Bay Packers that the Packers would lose a playoff or championship game. He won his first NFL championship the following year in 1961 by shutting out the New York Giants 37-0. They would win again against the Giants the following year in 1962 in a freezing game in New York 16-7. After winning his third NFL championship in 1965, he led the Packers to the first of 2 Super Bowl wins, the first 2 in Super Bowl history. They beat Hank Stram's Kansas City Chiefs in the first Super Bowl and the Oakland Raiders in the second. Now, Lombardi stepped down as head coach of the Packers after the 1967 season, but remained on as a general manager. Green Bay slipped to 6-7-1 under new head coach Phil Bingston, and the team would have to wait nearly 30 years before they would see another Super Bowl appearance and win. Now, he wanted to get back into coaching, and did so with the Washington Redskins for the 1969 season. The Redskins hadn't had a winning season since 1955 and were 5-9 under legendary Cleveland Browns quarterback Otto Graham in 1968. The Redskins started out the 1969 season 4-1-1 and looked like a playoff team. But they won only one game in November while tying another. Included in that was a 41-28 loss to the Cowboys, who were coached by Tom Landry, who was on that same staff with the Giants in Lombardi in the 50s. Now, Washington won their first 2 games in December to bring the record to 7-4-2, and that basically assured the franchise's first winning season in 14 years. The Cowboys were 10-2-1 heading into the game and had barely already clinched a playoff spot. Lombardi wanted desperately not only to beat the Cowboys, but his former coaching mate from their days with the Giants. But it wasn't the kind of ending to the season that Lombardi was looking for. The Cowboys got an early turnover in the first quarter when quarterback Sonny Jorgensen had a pass intercepted by Cowboys safety Mel Renfro. Dallas would get a 12-yard field goal from Mike Clark after the turnover, and the Redskins were forced to punt on their next possession. Mike Bragg's punt into a stiff win at the Cotton Bowl resulted in only a 23-yard punt. The Cowboys took advantage of this short punt when quarterback Craig Morton passed to tight end Pettis Norman for a 26-yard touchdown to put them up 10-0. Now, the Redskins did finally get on the board in the second quarter on a Kurt Knight 34-yard field goal to cut the deficit to 7-3. But Dallas answered with a field goal of their own to make it 13-3 at the half. The Redskins had a shot to cut the lead down in the third quarter, but Knight's 27-yard field goal was blocked by Dallas to keep the game 13-3 headed into the final quarter. Washington's defense forced a punt by Dallas early in the fourth quarter and were at the Cowboys' 16-yard line. But after 2 sacks on Jurgensen, the Redskins missed another scoring opportunity when Knight's 42-yard field goal into the wind sailed wide. The Redskins got a break on the next offensive play from Dallas when Cowboys running back Calvin Hill fumbled. Linebacker Chris Hanberger recovered the ball at the 19-yard line and returned it for a touchdown to cut the Cowboys' lead to just 13-10. However, Hill redeemed himself on the following drive when he sealed the game with a 6-yard scamper on a right-end sweep to make it 20-10. The game ended with the Redskins having a 4th and 38 as the Cowboys pass rush basically ran over Sonny Jurgensen and the Redskins offensive line all day. Now, Washington finished the season 7-5-2 under Lombardi. Like I said, first winning season in 14 years. Dallas would go on to lose for the second year in a row to the Cleveland Browns in the playoffs, but much better days lied ahead for the Cowboys. The 1970 season was to be the first the official NFL-AFL merger had taken place. It was the first year a wildcard team from each conference made the playoffs along with 3 division winners. Sadly, the legendary Lombardi would not be around to see it. On June 24, 1970, Lombardi was diagnosed with colon cancer and was told 3 days later that it was terminal. He died less than 3 months later on September 3rd at age 57, just before the start of that season. His funeral was held 4 days later with numerous past and present players as well as NFL Commissioner Pete Rozelle. Bill Austin stepped in as the Redskins head coach and the team went 6-8 that year. However, Lombardi had laid the groundwork for the Redskins, and they began a successful run under George Allen beginning in 1971. The team wouldn't have a losing season the rest of the decade, while Allen led the franchise to a Super Bowl appearance during the 1972 season, which of course was a 14-7 loss to the undefeated perfect Miami Dolphins. Lombardi was enshrined into the Pro Football Hall of Fame the following year, and the Super Bowl trophy is now named in his honor. His career regular season coaching record was 98-34-6, 9-1 in the playoffs, and I think it's easy to say he's one of the greatest coaches in American sports history. Lombardi was part of one of the greatest nicknames at Fordham, the 7 blocks of granite. He was part of the greatest game ever played in that 58 championship game. It was on one of the greatest coaching staffs of all time with Tom Landry and the New York Giants. He took a Packers franchise that was at their lowest point ever into a winner, and he started a record number of games sellout at Lambeau Field. He led a Redskins team from the abyss of 14 years of losing seasons to a winning season and basically set the groundwork so this team would be in the Super Bowl and be a constant playoff team for the next couple decades. In all, Lombardi never had a losing season as an NFL coach. And although not known at the time of this game, it's most fitting now that his last game was against Tom Landry, the man he was once on the same coaching staff with in New York, before they both went on to become legendary head coaching figures. Lombardi is one of the most iconic figures in American sports history, and that's why, on this day, December 21st, 1969, Vince Lombardi coaching his last game is such a big deal. All right, guys, you can hear On This Day every day, somewhere between 10 and noon on thegruelingtruth.com. You can hear all these podcasts on pretty much any network that carries podcasts, including iTunes, Spreaker, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube, Zeno Live Radio. So make sure you check back every day for On This Day on the Grueling Truth Sports Network. This has been Mike Goodpaster, and you've been listening to The Grueling Truth, where the legends speak.